Hello, my name is Selena, and I'm a part of the Let's Discuss A Course in Miracles webinar team at the Foundation for Inner Peace. The mission of the Foundation for Inner Peace is to publish, distribute, and discuss A Course in Miracles. And we're holding these Let's Discuss online webinars as an expression of our vision of extending love through A Course in Miracles teachings. Today, we are holding our second web event in the series, The Role of Teachers, which explores A Course in Miracles themes through the eyes of professional course teachers. This video series features course teachers throughout the world, including their students' perspectives. Today's event has been pre-recorded. Before we begin, I invite you to join me in prayer. From the text, chapter 2.
I am
I am here only to be truly helpful.
I am
I am here
to
to represent
him
him
who
who sent me.
I do
I
not
do not have to worry
worry
about what to say
or
or
what
what to do,
because
because he who sent me
will
will
direct me.
direct me.
I am
I am
content
content
to
to
be
be
wherever,
wherever he wishes,
knowing
he goes there with me.
I will be
I will be healed
as
as
I
I let him
teach me.
teach me to heal. And now it's time to introduce today's session, which features teacher David Hoffmeister, world-renowned for his practical teachings about spiritual awakening. His teachings that are based in A Course in Miracles have been translated into 13 languages and taken into the hearts and minds of millions. He is joined today by his partner, Svava, Kristen Love, a singer, songwriter, poet, and writer that has devoted her life to serving God and to be a demonstration of love and peace. Foundation for Inner Peace members, Tamara Morgan and Derek Carlson, will also join the discussion with their own perspectives of student-teacher learning on this path. So thanks so much and welcome to you all.
I am Tam Morgan, playing as president of the Foundation for Inner Peace at the moment. And I have 3 guests joining me. Thank you so much. And you can each introduce yourself as you see yourself. Svava, go ahead.
Me first.
You first.
I'm okay. Well, I'm Svava. Well, I am the Holy Son of God. My name is Svava here. And I'm just so grateful to be here, to join you, and just deep, deep gratitude. And yeah, just wonderful. Yeah, that's it.
Great. And then I'm going to Derek because I think you expected me to say you, David.
My name's Derek Carlson, and I'm a volunteer for the Foundation for Inner Peace. And going off of what Svava said, I know that I'm the Holy Son of God, but I think unlike David, there's a lot of ego in me still. So I'm sort of a bit of a hot mess, even after 20 years of working with the course. So I just want to share that.
Thank you. We welcome hot messes here.
That's very welcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now,
David.
beloved David, who
Thank
the
you.
heck are you?
I'm David, and I just live a life of simplicity and harmony, and really just enjoy meeting all my brothers and sisters wherever they are, whether now it's virtual, more virtual holy encounters than before, but I love it. So I'm happy to be here with all of you and to share on such a beautiful topic today. It's beautiful.
Thank you. And you are, I used to wonder what the point of jealousy was. And I really, really have brought it in of, it's just identifying what I want or need for myself. And I can let go of the blame or shame of jealousy. I can't imagine anyone not being jealous of you, David, to just be that happy. And the way that you've brought the course to your being and how you spread it is worthy of jealousy, except if, of course, you're a course student where you hand it over and I am you. So that is always a great thing. We're inviting you as the second guest, all four of us, of this series that became inspired around the professional teachers of the course. And we know we're all students and we're all teachers. I'd like to dedicate this entire series to my former co-president and just recently transitioned, Dr. Bob. And he was a professional teacher of this course. I relied on him for a lot of him knowing exactly what quote came from what page, which was like a great parlor trick in my mind, but it was much more for him. Like, he really was a scholar of this material, as are you. And David, I can't speak for you, Svava, and I can't even speak for you, David, so I won't. Anyway, here we are, and I don't know, because there's not a pre-agenda, but there are some seeming to come out. We've only had one person do this with us before, actually a group of three, but the person who was the teacher was Diane Gusip. And the thing that really pushed this forward is exactly that. And I am going to start with you on this one, David. What brought you to the feeling of you were ready to teach this in a professional way, as a teacher, rather than just in the reflection of we're all teachers, we're all students, especially in a system that has declared itself to be a self-taught system?
Yeah, well, as you know, with my background, I was extremely shy through childhood and through adolescence and even into my 20s. So that's another factor in terms of doing something like what seems like a public teaching, as opposed to maybe not so public. But I recently was on a talk show where I was saying that I think with me, everything is backwards from what I would ever have thought or expected. And Jesus does say in the Course that the world is backwards and upside down. And I think when I first had a calling, I didn't have any thought of being a professional teacher. I figured that was like a metaphor that I found in the manual for teachers, when the student's ready, the teacher appears, and vice versa. And actually I thought, well, I'll find out whenever that happens. Maybe that will apply to me. But of course, opening the book up, I didn't have any thought of that. And then I think I have a little bit of an unusual pathway with the Course, because I had these mystical experiences shortly after I was using the Course for maybe a year and a half or a couple of years. And then all of a sudden I had my first revelatory experience, and then I had a second one, and then a third one. So I got more into the mysticism aspect of what the direct presence of God was, with these light episodes in which the world disappeared, which is very unusual. I think Helen had her subway experience, and I've met people who have had revelatory experiences as well, but it's so rare. So I kind of I hit Z at the beginning instead of progressing slowly from A to Z. And then after I hit Z 3 times, I was really clueless at that point. Like, do you want me to just stay in the woods and meditate, like maybe Mary Magdalene or something, or what do you want me to do with this? So then when I began traveling, it was very spontaneous and very much just following invitations. And it really wasn't professional at that point either. And then going to groups, and some of the groups didn't even have a facilitator. And so stuff started coming out of my mouth when people would raise questions. And then it started to look almost comical, because out of 30 people, somebody would raise a question as we're going around reading the paragraphs, and then all the heads would turn to the David character, almost like some kind of comedy skit, Lucille Ball comedy skit, and the words would come out. So for me, it was kind of involuntary, like that just started happening in an involuntary way. And still there was no money exchanged or nothing that would make it look professional. And then when I started traveling, I started getting more invitations, and that kind of was the precursor for being invited to come to conferences and other things by Tony Ponticello, our friend, or others. And that I kind of slipped in the back door into it without ever consciously planning to have it happen. So it kind of like I got pulled in the tractor beam and then said, oh, okay, this is how it looks, and this is how this gig goes for the time being. And so that's how it happened.
I know that one really well. I just got born somewhere, and then got pulled into this story. Well, thank you for explaining that. There's so many different places we could go from that starting point of the revelatory experience, and how it transcends all the words. I mean, you almost don't have to read the course. That's what it's about, as you experience that. And what a gift to be given that 3 times. I've had that a few times myself, and then I rebel from it because that's a nature that entertains me, apparently. But Svava, in this, I'm intrigued by the relationship in so many levels of student, teacher, partnership. And what drew you? Were you looking for a teacher? I'm not going to continue the question because you know where to go with this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, I wasn't looking for a teacher. I had not been following David's teachings. I actually had not been reading the course for so long when I first met David, and it was very much guided for me. I started hearing guidance, where to go, what to do, like from the beginning when I started reading the course. So it wasn't like I saw David as a teacher in that way. It was more like a feeling and a knowing that I had to go I flew to Holland, had to go there on this retreat, and then it was just like so given, just guidance, what to do, what to say. It was all orchestrated by spirit. So it's not like I was following a teacher. No, it just happened. Like it just happened. Yeah. Beautifully just unfolded. Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to include Derek in on the conversation. What do you have to say about this, Derek? You ended up coming to volunteer for the Foundation for Inner Peace. Were you looking for guidance, teacher relationship? You immediately got different relationships within this organization. And what were your projections? What did you think might be here when you found our own hot mess within the organization, as almost every organization is?
I love what David and Svava just said, because about a week before you guys put out the questionnaire for volunteers, you guys put out a official thing looking for volunteers. About a week before that happened, you had sent out a survey, just a general survey asking, all of the people in the community some questions about the foundation. I can't remember what it was. And I just got the intuitive hit. I'm like, I'm going through emails. I'm deleting lots of emails. Foundation for Inner Peace is just one of many emails that I have. And so, I was about to delete it, but I got the intuitive hit to fill out the survey. I go, okay. I think I was sitting in my car and doing it on my phone. And as I got, towards the end, there was a comment box where it says, is there anything else you would like to share? And I just got the idea popped into my head. It wasn't premeditated at all. I just thought, I'm pretty good with computers, and a lot of organizations need a MacGyver handy computer guy for all sorts of stuff in this digital age. So even though you weren't asking anything about volunteers, in the random comments box, I said, oh, by the way, if you guys ever need any help with tech and websites, I'm pretty good with that sort of stuff. And it was just a thought that was given to me, and I submitted that. And then like a day or two later, Laura called me, and then 4 or 5 days later, I found out that you guys were on the precipice of seeking volunteers. But this all hit a week before you officially put that out there.
Well, thank you for answering the call. I think that we each are truly answering a call. And we don't even know we're being called sometimes. It's just that call. And as you called it, the Z, which makes me laugh, because when I think of Z, I think of being asleep, but your Z's, 3 Z's were wake-up calls. And we have been asleep. So those were, Z, wake up. But so the relationship as you and we each go forward, because, Derek came in and we're all healed, the king of tech, yay, we've needed someone. And the walking with projections that people then put on each of us as we take on just a daily role of teacher, as I say, even with Derek, he is teaching us, versus this teacherdom within the course, that certainly I'm moved with, because I don't have the scholarly knowledge of the course in certain ways. My mind doesn't hold that. My brother is the scholarly academic genius. My mother was an incredible intellect. I'm much more emotional intelligence. I left college and high school each a year early, graduated, not because I was so smart, because I wanted to finish up and get out to experiential knowledge. And so within the course, how would any of us and you speak to that which is the internal teacher, and then watching people, it's almost 2 different questions, but watching and dealing with the projections that come onto us because we are in a role of teaching something. And I certainly know, as I say, with Derek's, it's within an organization who's like, all hail the king of tech, but truly with this course, what does that mean to be a self-study system, and then come in and have a teacher, and then even, well, we can go to the next question after that, but an enormous following?
Well, I think that I remember in the manual for teachers, Jesus says, he starts out by saying there are no levels. And then he's going to answer the question about the levels of teaching. He's going to throw 3 out after he's clearly stated off the beginning that there are no levels. And I think that's where we get into metaphors, like teaching. Jesus says in this world, the teacher is a role, and the teacher gives to the student, and the teacher seems to have something more, kind of like when he talks about miracle workers. Miracle workers are situations or moments where one temporarily has more, and that can shift and change all the time. It's not a set role as like a specific teacher, like going to a guru or something like that. So I think what we can say is that teaching is to demonstrate. It's your attitude, it's your state of mind that teaches. So your attitude is really teaching all the time, and it's continuous. It doesn't start and stop. It's not like an activity that I'm teaching, now I'm going to have lunch and come teach in the afternoon. It's not really an activity. It's just a state of mind that you're demonstrating, and you're demonstrating it by the thoughts that you think consistently, because that's where the emotions, our feelings come from, our thoughts. So when you have a consistent thought system, you're aligned consistently, then that makes you more of a consistent demonstration. And that is probably the simplest answer we can give to teaching. Now, for most people, that's pretty high. They're ready to jump into Jesus's 3 levels of teaching and say, where am I? And what have I done? Because that's the way it works. But actually, I feel like I had to just accept whatever was given for me and accept whatever roles were given to me. If you're speaking at a conference, then they call you a speaker. If people transcribe your talks and put them in a book, then suddenly you're an author. Even though you didn't sit down to write a book, suddenly you're an author. And it's the same, I think, with teaching. Like, it's just a symbol that some people can use, and if it serves them for a time as a temporary symbol, great. But I always remind people it's an attitude, it's a state of mind. It doesn't really have to do with anything formal. It's not really a formal role, because the roles all shift and change and they fall away. Like, when we take our clothes off, we aren't in our clothes anymore. And I think that happens with the role of teacher as well at some point.
Yeah, thank you. And when we take our bodies off, we're not that either anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a second. When I was just with Emmanuel, when Robert transitioned, I am always confused about, like, we call it transition, transcended, evanescent, well, all those words. Anyway, he went through that over the timeliness of this past weekend, and both of us were standing there really talking over his body. We got very casual about it. And at one point, Emmanuel looked to me and said, he's really not in there. This is so not him. And that experience that you have if one is fortunate, and I would say this, fortunate enough to be around someone who's passed, where it's not like they've been shot or you're a soldier, but to really look at that person and say, that's not him or her. Yes, they've left the building in that way, but what's remains. And oh my gosh, like with my mother, anytime I connect with love, there she is. And I can't kind of get rid of her. If I want to go on a path to love, I can't be separate, and I can't sit and grieve and mourn because she mocks me through being love, so it's a great irony. But in this, and this is like Tam projected playful personality, I would ask, so Svava, do you get enjoyment ever in a personality form when enjoyment's the wrong word. I just mean playful delight in the lightest sense. If at some point, and I'm not saying he does, but if at any point David accidentally acts like a jerk, and he may never, but that, and I say it because, I will walk out and people will want to touch me because I'm related to my mother, or they'll project whatever they want on me. And I'm in a partnership with a man who is very funny. And like, for instance, the other day, we were supposed to introduce the Brazilian the international conference that was based this year in Brazil, or came out of Brazil. And we got the timing wrong. And so here everyone was waiting for us to present this, and we didn't show up. We had to show up later, and it was oops. And my partner was making fun of me about it. It's like, oh my gosh, we just forgot that, although I deeply trust spirit. And there were reasons why that needed to be forgotten and what had to evolve after that. But my partner was actually teasing me through the course, saying, well, isn't the course's definition of forgiveness that this didn't really happen? And I said, yes. And he said, so you can tell the head of the conference, it didn't really happen. We didn't show up. We were just teaching about forgiveness, and it's the perfect forgiveness opportunity. So is there ever that delight in you that when you're standing in your practice, do you ever have that experience, or is your experience of David so like he is so true at this point after his 3 Z's and all the work that there's not the usual conflicts that can come when you're exhausted, tired, when I'm exhausted, tired, and slipping into crankiness or forgetting to remember the course.
Yeah, well, it's always my own lesson, you know. If something is, you know, triggering, then it's my lesson, and step out and pray. But it's funny because I was thinking when you were talking, David, he's so much in the moment. So he has this huge desk calendar here. He writes everything down. Otherwise, he forgets everything, and sometimes he forgets like calls and stuff. And I am like you reminding him of it. And yeah, but I honestly, I often feel like it's just very cute. Like, oh, that's so sweet. But yeah, but of course, forgiveness opportunity. Sometimes I feel like I have to like have hold it, like remember things for him, and I'm not really good at that either. So we are kind of like very clueless, forget things. I'm trying to help remember, look at the calendar, and yeah, but it's pretty funny, you know, nothing is really serious. So it's always a great lesson in forgiveness, whatever it is. If you don't show up, yeah, that's great. That was meant to be that way. And yeah, so
It's an amazing living example of how to do this and how to live this. I was actually complaining about needing some type of an administrative assistant just for calendaring, literally just for calendaring. And then of course what was presented was all of this technical, well, let's just get this E calendar and an X calendar and a Y calendar, and this calendar's for this. And I'm thinking, oh, thank you, really helpful. Now I have to figure out 3 technological things to figure out how to remind me of just to show up on time, because I am also becoming more and more in the present. And I'm becoming more and more in the present in an ass backwards way, which makes me so glad that Jesus says that everything's upside down and backwards. And my father always called me ass backwards. The ass backwards way is that there's so much on my plate that I don't have the time to take the time to prepare for something. And, you know, I just keep showing up. And what it's doing is allowing me to let go completely of all of the preparation, the thinking of what I had to do for this, and thinking how much time my mother took to prepare and to get ready, you know, including having her hair done and, you know, all of the wonderful things that she made sure she did with such class that I just show up as like, oh, well, did I shower? No, that's okay. This isn't a scratch and sniff thing. It's all right. I'm just showing up. And, you know, we get it in such different ways, but it is a beautiful thing to see the two of you in partnership with that shared knowledge and commitment in interaction in that. And there is in that same projection on the outside, but I can't really project with you that that you're two difficult people sharing the difficulties. I feel like you really, really, really have been doing the work. And that is a teaching in itself. And I do feel that what you were saying for me is coming to the course, I'm saying it ass backwards, but with the experiential knowledge to then be able to explain what these words are really meaning is one aspect of teaching that I find, this is my judgment, but extremely authentic, really authentic. And what do you have to say over there, Derek?
I've just got a question I've been wanting to ask for years. I think I wanted to ask this of Eckhart Tolle, but I never had an opportunity to. And that is, this might apply both to you, David, and to you, Svava, but I'm going to post the question to David. In your state of peace and knowing that you are in, seems to be all the time. Whenever I see you, you're just exuding this light and this peace. is there emotional attachment? Like, for example, is there emotional attachment to Svava to where if something happened to her, you would feel grief and sadness, but be at peace and just allow those emotions to go through you while not placing any meaning on them? Or would you not experience grief and loss because you're so clear that Svava is not Svava, the body, sort of thing?
Yeah, for me, it's a very surreal world, but it's a very even keel experience. Like, for example, both Tamara's mother and my mother both passed recently. And I remember I was I was in the airport, and I was actually heading to Cincinnati, where she lived, and my sister and her family. And my sister called me, and I didn't have my phone on the ringer on, but I was there in the airport of Guadalajara, and I looked down and I saw my sister's name. I answered. She said that my mother had had a massive heart attack, and where are you now? I said, actually, I'm in the airport, almost ready to board a plane for Cincinnati. And I have to say that the whole experience I had coming there with my relatives and everything, there, I didn't have any kind of emotional fluctuations at all. It was very surreal, but it was very much like everyday experience. Just being prayerful, being present, extending, hugging, niece, nephews, talking to my grandniece, flowing through, making preparations, going to a hospital first where she was on life support for a while, and all those things, and then going to the funeral home, and then to the church where she was laid out, and then going to the cemetery. It was very joyful, taking roses and many encounters there. But it's a very stable state of mind. It wasn't, there wasn't an up or down with it. And I think Svava is very much the same when we went in, even when my mother Evelyn was unconscious. Svava had this real, very telepathic sense, like there was a lot of communications going on there, even though Evelyn was unconscious. And even Evelyn started to twitch a little, and Svava was there, and I could feel like there was a lot of love and a lot of communication happening, but not verbally. And so that's more the way that it seems. So there's not these big swings or fluctuations. It's more like a flat line, but emotionally a high flat line or something like that. And then it's like, but it's very surreal. It's like you're watching something, you're observing something, but there's not that emotional attachment with outcomes. Because I really don't, even when I'm guided to put a property up for sale, for example, people say, oh, you're selling this property. And I say, oh, no, I just put it up for sale. You're talking about an outcome, and I have no inclination one way or the other. It'll do whatever it did in the script. So I don't really have those investments in outcomes. And I think that's where the emotions of fear come in, because there's expectations, sometimes even unconscious expectations that are there, and then those things would come up. But I really, I heard somebody say one time years ago, the wise man expects things to be exactly as they are. and I said, I like that. It's more of a state of acceptance and observation. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Fascinating.
Anything more about that? Because I have something to say about it.
Oh, go for
it. That experience to completely let go of outcome with such knowledge that it will be taken care of by something greater than our minds, and whatever does happen is actually for love. I mean, I'm not even going to say for our best good, for love. And the consciousness of riding that wave of it. And you remind me, because, you're selling this place, I'm selling my mother's unit. And as I started to say earlier, the salesperson agent keeps saying, well, it hasn't sold yet because of this, and that. And I'm like, no, it hasn't sold yet because the time hasn't come for it to sell. And she does keep saying, well, do you want me to be more aggressive? Do you need me? I said, do you want to be more aggressive? Would that feel better for you? And she's like, no, I'm just not aggressive that way. And it's like, then don't be. And in fact, the joke of it is that it took 13 years of seeing this place for my mother and stepfather to buy it in the first place. They came back for 13 years to this retirement community looking at places, and it wasn't until it was right for that. So the teacher in this, she keeps saying to me, you're such a teacher to me. And I'm laughing, thinking teacher to her means just someone loving her, saying, be how you are, it's all okay. And there is so much novelty for when you say what's rare, like the revelatory experience can be rare, but then there still seems for people to feel that it's rare to just love them and to not judge them. And that feels to me like the true teacher of God. And when we each experience that at any moment in our day or night or relationship, or, looking on the ground, that's when we get to experience the teacher and the student, because in there we're learning it ourselves over and over and over again as we teach it within ourselves. And when you talk, Derek, about the sadness of the body, I'm more still and letting go of it more and more, but still a little bit of a drama queen. So, I had an experience of my cat who died, who I had with me for 20 years. We both got pregnant on the same day. Don't even go ask me how I know that, but we did. And we went through a lot of life and a lot of death together and a divorce together. And she was still with me, this cat. And it was her time. And I had to, put her down with a wonderful vet, and I got to hold her, and she passed. And I woke up the next day and I missed her. It's funny how like a pet can get you sometimes more than even a person. And she wasn't there, and I started to cry, and I could feel her purring next to me. I could feel her energy. Talk about, the psychic and the intuitive and the other channel that you can go to tune into a being who really is still there. And I felt this, and I looked at her annoyingly, this little bundle of energy, and I had brushed her, and she was a long hair Himalayan cat, and there was a bunch of fur in my trash bin, and I looked at her energy and I said, you know what, I'm sorry, but see that ball of fur? And I went and picked it up. I'm still crying over this. I know you're here in that form, but I miss this dead piece of dirty fur that I'm like waving at her. I want to miss this and cry for this. Tears, I get to cry that you're not in this form now. And it made me even laugh inside doing that. But I went through the love of the drama of talking to her that way. And with my mother, I don't feel the same. It's like, oh, I love you in every little light beam that I see you. This is great. As I keep saying, I have not been in a deep emotional mourning for her. Something will remind me, and maybe a tear will spring, but it's a tear of gratitude. It's not the egoic, oh, I am missing a person. It's more, oh, you're around. And that was a good story we lived together, wasn't it, Mom? So, I don't know if that helps even on another aspect of where grief is. I mean, everything has so many different levels. And I was laughing because you were giving a simplistic version of something. And I was like, okay, dare you, go give the big, really complicated one. And the answer is A Course in Miracles. It's as complex and simple as you could possibly get in that. And, you know, so the typical questions that I would even be curious about, you kind of flatline them. You know, you both flatline them because they're not in personality form. But what would you say about what you would offer people who do project on to teachers something greater than what they need to? So for instance, there's devotional love, and that's when gurus come in. And there's a really interesting path, like Siddha Yoga is a transmission through gurudom. Like, give me all your love, but you're really, and the guru will say, but you're really honoring the light within you. And I'm the reflection of that love, but give it to me. I gave it to my teacher, and that will awaken you. That's their tradition. But there's a lot of people, even in the Course tradition, who do that to different teachers. And then the different teachers start coming up with saying that the Course says this versus someone else goes, no, it actually is saying this. And then the teachers are arguing, and the teachers don't, some of the teachers don't like the other teachers. And it's such a, it has been such a funny world for me to step into, especially when I started by not practicing the Course and driving my mother crazy to the point she was about to yell at me. And I would say, you're not practicing the Course. And when I came into this role in the foundation and not practicing the Course, I could say to some of the teachers who were arguing, you're not practicing the Course. Aren't you teaching the Course? What does that mean? How can you hold this attitude of anger or division or separation if you practice the Course? So is there a holding that you notice of a higher standard to the teachers of A Course in Miracles, who I have been holding, you know, and learning through the Course to let go of everything, but finding my ego having a holding of like, wouldn't you, how much do you need to be authentically doing this practice if you want to go out there as a professional teacher of the Course? And what is that line for you? I think you have, you know, you're both really seemingly from over here living this with authenticity. And that's what I'm trying to do within the Foundation for Inner Peace, like make sure that everything is handed over, everything, every complex, personal, as we grow, even, you know, the tensions between people are cleared, so that what comes out of the Foundation for Inner Peace is love, love, love. But long way around the question, how do you respond to that? In seeing teachers come with different perspectives or attitudes about other teachers?
Well, I think that the high standard is there, but it's you might say it's a very strong integrity internal standard based on presence and connection and joy and love and happiness. You know, that experience, it's a very high standard for that, because I feel like we're doing this for Jesus. Even with Bob recently transitioning, passing, I feel like, well, he's on to his next assignment for Jesus. I do feel like there's the commonality among Course teachers that there is a great respect for Jesus and a great gratitude for what's been given through Helen and Bill and Ken and your mother, Judy, and the FIP. You know, there's a great gratitude and respect. And even with that, I mean, there are people that have their opinions, as you know, that it seems to be variable opinions around just about everything. Mm-hmm. But I feel like our standard is be extending the love, and to be forthright and transparent and open, and answering questions, and be in the joy and the glee of the moment like a child. That's really our standard. And of course, with that comes integrity and honesty, really a deep honesty, not just an honesty of words, but more of an honesty within all aspects of consciousness, a consistency. So I find that pretty early on, I think, Tamara, you and I have gone through so many experiences. I mean, you were right there with your mother and Ken and you know, all of them. You were right there. You were even in the little story of A Course in Miracles with the little hood on and everything. You know, I know you've seen it all, and I've kind of seen a lot in terms of traveling to 44 countries. So I've met, you know, hundreds, thousands of teachers and students, and listened to all the opinions. Oh, this, you have to listen to this one. Or when I first started traveling, I started going overseas. When I got down to South America, they basically, I went to Bogota, and they said, "Who are you with?" And I said, "What do you mean, who am I with?" And they said, "Which organization? Are you Endeavor? Are you Ken Wapnick? Are you Marianne Williamson?" It was almost already, this is 2005, and I don't understand the question. I mean, who are you with?
Jesus. Jesus.
Yeah. And then when they named all the names, and I said, "Well, I think I'm really just a free agent for Jesus or something." They said, "Well, don't show up then. You got to be with somebody. We don't want to even see you. We don't want to hear you if you're not with somebody." And I thought, okay. And then the place where I was staying, they organized a spontaneous gathering at the condo. So it happened anyway. But I started to say, okay, I don't have to buy into any of these thoughts, because my experience is to show up in joy and to extend peace. And that's my function as a minister of God, or as a miracle worker. Mm-hmm. So I find that I don't really get into any of that, although we did have that fundraiser that you and Bob came to, and
the fundraiser.
Yeah, the fundraiser, and Judy and Whit showed up on the screen, and we had a whole mix of a bunch of people. We had a lot of fun. It was a fundraiser. We raised the fun level with all of us. We had a great time, and the memories are still very dear of your visit there to our monastery. But yeah, I don't really get involved in the other stuff because I don't think Svava and I really don't consider ourselves teachers. We don't really consciously think of that at this point. You know, we have a little 2-year-old cat that when I adopted from when my mother passed, and she is so clueless, always wide-eyed, and like she doesn't know what anything means, and she sniffs everything every day for the first time she's ever smelled it. And she's a good witness to us of being clueless for God, of just being in the moment, totally in the moment, and not really having a care or a concern about anything else. Very playful as well.
Yeah. Well, and Svava, I imagine that for you do come across, and tell me if I'm wrong, because my imagination can go anywhere, it's very big, that you do come across people who feel threatened or want to get past you to David, and who put their stuff on you. I don't think that's any different than any other stuff, but how do you deal with that, and how do you navigate through that? You know, I kind of know the answer already, but I still would like it told for everyone to hear anyway.
Yeah.
We all need reminders.
Well, you know, like I said before, everything is my own lesson. So if anything is triggering me, I have to go to the spirit with that. but everything is a call for love, so so if anything like that happens, it is a call for love. And then in my situation, I just step back, because it hasn't anything personally to do with me. But yeah, so I just have been practicing just stepping back and watching, and if anything comes up in my mind, I give it over to be forgiven. Yeah, so that is basically what. Yeah, but it's always a call for love. Yeah.
And it happens a lot seemingly when you are more public, or you travel, or you do public events, that just invites it. Just like with politicians or anybody who's in the public eye, an actor, an actress, it's almost like you've somewhere deep in your mind, you've made a contract, like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll play the part. Oh yeah, thank you, Jesus, and I'll take anything that comes with it. Somehow we agree to it. We sign a contract, and then when it comes, then of course it's our lesson of forgiveness.
Right. Well, I will say that the opportunity in our fundraiser was the first time that I was pretty new to this relationship with my partner, Peter, and I have a whole group of friends that I've made out here, particularly because I knew that all my parents were dying soon. Like, it sounds very strange, but I created another family. We all brought property together, but these people didn't know me well, but we connected so deeply through the heart on a trip. We'd gone to the desert together, and we all really connected. And so they didn't really know me. They didn't know me as a writer. They knew me as literally just stepping in to be the president of an organization that they joked around was a cult. Like when each of us asked what we did, they'd say, oh, Tam does something with a cult. And I could correct, but at the same time, it was a funny little statement. And I never really did speak with them about A Course in Miracles, because it was so refreshing for me to have this other family who came, and they adored my mother. They knew my mother, but they didn't really know what's going on here, or what A Course in Miracles is or means. And I didn't put it on them. I don't put it on anyone, especially back then. I was just kind of more quiet about it. So I invite this man who I've recently gotten involved with in beginning of a partnership to say, want to come to this gathering with me? And he said, sure. And, we got there, and he was blown away, because, as I say, there were some people who's like, oh my God, you're Judy's daughter. And, oh my gosh, can I touch you? And can I hug you? And all of that. And here's this man completely unprepared for this looking, it's like, as you said, if you're with a famous actor in a certain realm, like not being told that this person's famous, but you're dating them, not having a clue, and then going somewhere and there's all of this, some of it feels even worship-like. And he was blown away by it. And he came, when we came back afterwards, when we were with our friends, he's like, you wouldn't believe what she really does out there. It was at that point a very separate life. It really was. It was the love was the same in both places, but a lot of my work with the foundation was, hey, I'm just like you. Come on, like my mother was just so gorgeous, and how she emanated and how she loved, and it was a different presentation than me, of like, more Facebook generation, even though I'm not on Facebook much. But the transparency that you and I have, David's like, just say anything, it's all okay. And my mother was more refined. And although she would get to really deep issues, there was a different presentation of them. And I like getting off the horse and being down on the ground and playing with everyone. And my mother was comfortable with being in that role, and then separating and leaving her other part very private.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey.
Yeah.
I had my deepest, strongest learning from my mother was when we were at a conference together. And I have told this story before, but we were I was 18 and I was asked to come to Carleton College because I was doing work with children, blind children, teaching them how to sense color. And I was invited to this conference that also they invited my mother for A Course in Miracles. They had several different things going on at once. It was a consciousness kind of conference. And I went, my mother said, "Oh, you want to come to my talk? We'll have lunch afterwards in the morning." I guess it was breakfast afterwards. And I went, and I was in the audience and people were there, and the person next to me had the 3 volumes, of course, back then. And one of them slipped off her lap and she dropped it. She went, "Oh," like this. And then she picked it up and she kissed the book. And I'm like, huh. Sitting right next to her, like she had done something wrong by dropping it. It was like the Torah or something Hebraic. And she had to then kiss it. And then my mother got up and she gave a great talk about pure spirit and love. And she steps out of the way and she's just pure love. And afterwards, that's where it came from. People asking if they could touch me, if they were crying, and "Can I touch you? And you're related to this woman." And I went back and I yelled at my mother and I said, "What are you doing? You're creating a guru image. Like, these people don't know that you get tired, that you go to the bathroom, that you have sex, that you have, and then by the end of these conferences, you're so tired. You say, if I never see another person again, I'm fine." Like, she's just so exhausted. She doesn't even want to talk to the people who she's so loving to. And like, you're not giving them a full picture. And so she said, "Come back this afternoon." I was like, "No." She said, "Just come back this afternoon." So I come back and she comes in, and the podium was, the microphone was too high. And instead of moving it and adjusting it, she took, and I said, "And you're treating the course like you're promoting the treatment of the course, like it's the Bible and da, da, da." And so she comes in, she throws the 3 volumes on the floor. She steps on them to rise up and meet the mic. And she does this amazing course. And she says, "It is not about the books. It is not about this person. I actually go to the bathroom." I don't think she said she had sex on stage, but I do things, like the rest of you do. And I curse, and I have a hard time with things. And she became human, really human, right there in front of everyone. But it is about this practice and this commitment to this practice, and stepping out of the way so spirit can come through and share that. And at the end of the course, people were crying and they came up to me and said, "Can I touch you? You're related to her." And then I realized it didn't matter what she said up there. She could just sing the national anthem and, blow her nose. People were projecting what they wanted to project, but they were receiving what they needed to receive at that time, at that level of learning. And I would say, "Oh, there are all these bliss ninnies who just act like they're totally fine when I see their pain, intuitive child, like they are in such pain and they're going, everything's so perfect." And it's like, no, it's not. Why can't you talk about that? But the show was still going on no matter what my mother did. And her commitment to just do what she was called to do. And for me not to judge anyone of what they saw in my mother, because it was healing to them, or where they were in their own path, where they were ready to receive whatever they were being given. And I was given such a lesson there about a student teacher, all wrapped up in that one show that affected me for the rest of my life. I don't always remember it right away, but it comes back over and over again. What a beautiful demonstration that was. And yes, it is my stuff. It's totally my stuff when I judge and I'm in and I'm challenged. And I am deeply aware of that. And the ability to not see that anymore in someone else and not judge that, even the bliss ninny thing, I mean, that term came from Bill as a judgment about those he did not want. Please just keep me away from the bliss ninnies if I'm going to give the talk. Became a condescending judgment, whereas these bliss ninnies who aren't able necessarily to connect at this moment to their pain, to get to let it all go, wherever they come in, yay. Welcome wherever one is. And that was vision transforming for me personally.
Yeah.
So knowing that you do that as well, it's I'm glad for that. And the egos that can represent the course and get into these big egos about being a course, I'm a course teacher. And what I don't understand, and I'm going to have Reverend Tony come on, because I really look forward to that. I almost had him come on here, but it's evolving. Maybe there'll be a bunch of teachers and we'll all be getting to discuss it with each other, which will be fun. But the idea of kind of, what's the word? I'm going to use the wrong word. It's not anointing, but creating reverence. Course in Miracles reverence, where I always joke that I'm the irreverent. But what that does in a hierarchical course system of what is that, then the specialness, the separateness, what that brings to the system. And I know there's a wonderful side to it, which is people really studying and learning and getting to a place of knowledge and commitment, but it does seem to push in yet another system. And it makes me curious. And do you have that at all within your organization?
Yeah, it was interesting because I was just a traveling mystic going around the country and Canada and the world. And then I think when I think of St. Francis of Assisi, how the ones that came that called them Franciscans or to live with him, they were all in Italy. It's interesting with me is that people started to come and say, you are so happy, I would love to live near you or close to you. And when you have a country like the United States and you have people wanting to come around you, it's like a patchwork, it's like a collage. And there's all kinds of things about how long you can stay and so on and so forth. So actually, I made a nonprofit that was very kind of, it wasn't religious at all. It was called the Foundation for the Awakening Mind. And it was an educational foundation with the course kind of principles written into the bylaws and everything so forth. And then at one point, when I met Kirsten down in New Zealand, she said, oh, I want to come and join and work more closely with this. And so I was able to use that foundation as part of a visa for her to come in, called a religious visa for 2.5 years, and then renewable for another 2.5. But at some point, I had such a tiny little house with a little grill and a hot tub that I was using as my headquarters, global headquarters, like you with your houseboat idea. I was using this little house built in 1847. And so when I tried to apply for her renewal so she could stay another 2.5 years, they apparently did a site check and they said, no, this is not global headquarters. This is a little house with a grill and a hot tub. This is where the government meets. I'm just fly by the seat of my pants, do it for Jesus.
Right.
So then they said, you need to come in for an interview. Well, Kirsten had prepared for the interview and they asked her questions from when she was a teenager, 16, 17, 18. And she was ready to talk about forgiveness and all these things. So she was like a doe looking in the headlights. She could not answer questions because she was so into the practice of the course. So eventually they did say, they did interview me too. And they said, I sat down for the interview with the government. I thought this should be fun. I'm in for a holy encounter. And the woman sat across from me. I said, hi, how you doing? She said, hi. She slid a piece of paper across to me. And she said, is this your guru? That was the first question from the government. It was a picture of Marianne Williamson. And this was an interview for a religious visa, you know,
Wow.
because it's just symbols. You know, I always say, well, it's all just symbols. I'm
Right,
open to whatever.
right.
So after this interview and after Kirsten's, you know, like deer in the headlights interview, Kirsten got a message, you need to leave the United States immediately. That was the end of the religious visa. And so at some point when we prayed, I could feel like I was going to be used with all these countries and all these people, and people would want to come together and study together that couldn't do that like with the Franciscans. So I just prayed, and Jesus did say, start a church. And again, for me, it's because everything, I did it all backwards. I had the 3 revelatory experiences. I'm just flowing along cluelessly and waiting for instructions. So I wasn't forming a church with some intention of it being more important or special or different or anything like that. It was a matter of practicality of just dropped in my lap. And the first time we had the discussion about it, Jason Warwick, you know, Jason was there with us, and Kirsten and Jason were like in a relationship, and Kirsten said, I'm really feeling that Jesus wants us to start a church. And Jason just shook his head and said, I am not feeling that at all. So, you know, you have these things, but actually I have to say over the years, it did work as a beautiful symbol, allowing people to be in the United States together with me. So it got used for a greater purpose. But of course, the ego would want to, you know, use symbols for its purpose of specialness. And then the spirit wants to use everything for letting go of the specialness and having those heart-to-heart connections. So actually, yeah, I said we're selling the house. I'm not selling my house. This is actually the church property that is being turned into apartments. That's Jesus's next use of the property. And, you know, we just flow along with it. And it's a symbol that I don't use very often. I mean, some people, like our friend Netta Bowen, she contacted me at one point and she said, I want to do prison work. I want to go into prisons in Holland and in the United States, and they won't necessarily let me in unless I have a credential. I want to go sing for them. I want to do voice liberation. I want to meet the prisoners, but I can't get in. And another friend of ours who also uses the minister symbol, he said, yeah, maybe talk to David. And so I said, sure, I can work on that for you if it's a symbol that will help you.
Yes.
Then, but she doesn't advertise it or,
Right.
you know, put it out, but it's just a symbol that's a helpful symbol that helps her do what she's guided to do.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I have been, you know, I was a religion major, you know, comparative religion major. And there was a part of me that did always want to get some type of ministry just to have in my back pocket. And again, because of all these ridiculous, I shouldn't say ridiculous, all of these symbols that we do have that sometimes, you know, we need to present authority, and authority is not even the right word, but that you do know what you're coming from, you know, so people can trust you in the world of form, that you've actually done your work to represent whatever it is that you're representing. Yeah. And Dr. Bob's wife Emmanuel is a reverend, and we were talking about that, and I was saying, you know, at this point with all the reverends going on, you know, I should just ask if anyone has an honorary one, so I don't have to go to school for it, you know. And I always felt like honorary doctor doctors were, given these honorariums, where suddenly they were honorary PhD, honorary this and that. It's like, maybe I need one of those to just have, so that I can be validated and to get into different places. But the fact is, I don't need it. So I'm
Seems
still
to come in the back door. Like, I think both of you and I know like Beverly Hutchinson and Miracle Distribution Center. And I think at one point they were going through their wanting to be tax exempt and everything, and having some difficulties. And the way I heard the story was their legal representative said, you're a church, you do your gatherings, your talks here, and da 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 da. And that was probably something that Beverly didn't expect at all, just like I didn't expect it. And Jason, certainly, he was like, no, I don't feel that at all. But I think it's miracles are involuntary, and we're meant to be collaborative and meant to be listening and following, but not thinking we know the way, like the way the workbook ends, Father, we do not know the way to you, but you have called and we have answered. Salvation's ways are not our own. When we stay in that surrendered listen and follow thing, then of course the prejudgments come up, like just the word church right away. I mean, I grew up in a church, and you studied religion and comparative religion. So there's all kinds of connotations and associations with these words. But I think Spirit wants to just wash us free, do like a power wash in our minds. But we have to really be surrendered to let that power wash happen. If we're clinging to identifying with certain things as an identity, it just slows us down in the awakening process.
Completely. I think I have a suggestion for a next book for maybe even both of us or all four of us. It's Seat of My Pants for Jesus, the Ass Backwards Journey to Forgiveness.
Very good. That's a catchy title.
Yeah, really have fun with that. And we start from the end of the book, and then
read it backwards.
End up at page 1 or preface or whatever it is. But really, that could be a fun thing. I do that project with you guys. So yes, is there anything, Derek?
Yeah, I had a question that kind of comes out of what David was talking about the church and the gathering of people. When I started A Course in Miracles, I didn't even reading it myself for probably 10 or 15 years before I started connecting with others. I didn't realize it was speaking at the level of me as a mind. So I was making level 1 and level 2 confusions all the time. And when it said give all to all, I was really scared, because I'm thinking, oh no, I have to give my car away. I have to give my money away. I took it at the level of form, which is not what it was intended. So I completely misinterpreted things. And so now lately I've been taking classes with Diane Gusick, who self-admittedly is not self-realized, but she really has a tremendous understanding of the different levels. So I'm learning from her about these distinctions. So that's coming into me, intellectually, and it's very beneficial, because there's things that I myself just misinterpreted and missed. And so the question that I wanted to ask you, David, which kind of relates to you, it relates to Guru Mai or gurus, it relates to being in the presence of somebody who has let go of the ego entirely or substantially. Is there a benefit or an additional level of learning or an accelerated learning for a student like me, who's been primarily learning at this intellectual level, to be in the presence of a person like you or a loving energy field? Does that help accelerate things or have other benefits?
Well, I'm not one for the idea that proximity has any kind of special acceleration, or the touch, like Tamara. A lot of people do feel like they feel somebody's energy, they want to touch them. They do want to touch them. They even believe there'll be some kind of transmission that will occur. And that's a very common belief. But I think for me, again, going to everything was backwards for me, that once first I used the Course as an oracle because I wanted to hear the voice of Jesus and the Holy Spirit. So I just used the book for about 2.5 years as an oracle, and was just amazed at when I would pray and close my eyes, what I would open to. It was always like it was right there with me. But then for me, traveling for like 5 years, kind of like Marla Morgan, Message Down Under, I was doing it through the United States. That was helpful for me getting into divine providence, because whenever we talk about to have, give all to all, it's just interpreted through the ego filter. And that brings up a lot of fear, like, uh-oh, not in this life. A lot of people tell me, not in this lifetime. I'm not going to do the first lesson of the Holy Spirit, to have, give all to all. But for me, I could hear Jesus by the time I was wandering around the country for 5 years. And what Jesus was teaching me was all in the level of presence and content and mind. He was never saying there was anything special to the form. In fact, he would show me so many different forms to make it clear to me what the content was, that it had nothing to do with the form, that had to be involuntary. I just had to listen and follow and let him rearrange time and space and show me that I didn't have to. He calls it in, I think it's chapter 2, lower order needs. He says, if you will give them to me, I will handle all lower order needs. And I'm like, what is low order needs? He said, food, clothing, shelter, transportation, everything that you consider about that body is a lower order need. And if you'll give me your mind to join and let me come through you, I'll handle all the lower order needs. That goes against all of our training. I mean, that's nothing my parents taught me, and they were Christians. That's nothing I learned in 10 years of university. Jesus was like saying, hit the road with me, and now we'll get into some content and some clarity. So I think even with the levels you're talking about, the thing with level confusion is it's even simpler than some of the authors that have written it. And because, level 1, level 2, many people grow up with that system. Basically, Jesus taught me, he said, the mind is causative and there's nothing in form that's causative. So if you believe anything in form, food, money, protective clothing, being liked, knowing the right people, anything is causative that's making you happier, you're mistaken. And if you think it's making you sad or upset, you're mistaken. That the level confusion is when we give causation to form. It's not so much a 1 and a 2 as it's been described. And these are things when it comes down to copyright and things. Yeah. Until you get clear that there's nothing causative in form, the ego will bite you in the rear end when you least suspect it. And I know, Tamara, you've lived through it all. We're both the same age and our bodies are. So we've been through all the things. We've seen it all, basically. And there's been a lot round and round with the Course even. But for me, it was simple of really just looking at my thoughts and giving them to Jesus, and then letting it come through me in an involuntary way where I wasn't feeling responsible for the puppet. I was more to be aligned in joy and happiness, and then let Jesus handle the puppet and everything else, all the other puppets too. And that gets you away from the categorization and the comparison of the ego, because there's nothing causative in form. So why should we be comparing it and trying to analyze it and figure it out when it's out of our hands when we truly give it over? So I think that's where I do love collaborations, but I like to go very deep. And I not only like to talk about the core principles of what the Course says, but I like to give lots of examples. I did have a website called Teacher of Teachers, which I said the Holy Spirit is the teacher of teachers. Jesus is our teacher of teachers. It's not a person in the world. But then I put it into a book called Unwind Your Mind Back to God. And I think it could maybe in a couple centuries become like the new practical Bible, only because I worked with students and we trace things back from the level of form with children, with food, with mosquitoes, with everything that they were dealing with. And we kept bringing it back to the right mind with every single presenting problem. Now it's a big book, it's very thick, but it's actually a how to forgive, because it's got so many examples, whereas the Course, it's very flowery with the words and it's very metaphysical, and it even refers to the golden rule, and it refers to the prodigal son parable once, but it doesn't really have the parables. It doesn't have the examples. So my interactions back in the day in the early 90s with the students got recorded, transcribed, and put into a big book that I think the more people want to get into the practical application, they will see the value of this book. It's like a little golden seed that is a good companion to the Course because it's so practical. And that's what you're talking about, Tamara, is you're saying, and Derek, you're asking the question, is it valuable to live in the proximity of a mind like that or a being? I think all of the seeming students I had would tell you that there was a great value when I would take them out on the streets and they would say, is he going to give them any money? What's he going to talk to them, touch them? They would be fascinated when I'd be on the streets of Cincinnati. They would be like blown away because I would have all these encounters, almost telepathic encounters with homeless people that just blew their minds. They would see homeless people running up to me going, I know you. Where do I know you from? I know you. It was like such a deep recognition, but it didn't fit into their boxes. Like, these people are strangers and they're running up to you. And some of them you're even giving money to. How do you know which ones? I said, miracles are involuntary. I'm just there to be of service. Like Bill, Lord, here I am. I was just in the prayer, Lord, here I am. And then it all flows from that. So I even had a friend of mine who sent me a voicemail a couple of days ago, and she said, oh, I'm so glad for you mentoring me all these years. And she had a request for me, but people are on to giving as they're called to give. They're living their life inspired by spirit. And that to me is the greatest thing. Then you're starting to realize the firsthand experience of the connection, not some organization or some horizontal loyalty of, oh, I have to, I'm in this lineage. Lineage is linear. I studied all the guru lineages, but then I thought, well, wait a minute, that's linear. That's not even what the Course is teaching. It's teaching in the holy instant. Come into the holy instant. So I hope that gives you a little answer there to it.
It does. Thank you so much.
And I just want to step in on 2 counts, which is that when one's in that presence of mind, there still seems to be some balance occasionally of where boundaries are, like complete love and also boundaries. For instance, I grew up in New York. I came back from Nepal and I was wide open. And I was walking in New York and there was a homeless man, and the love pouring out for him. And I mentioned something to the person I was with of like, wow, look at how amazing that man's eyes are. And I walked by, and about 10 seconds later, someone grabbed me by my hair, threw me on the ground. And it was this homeless person. And he was saying, why were you looking at me? Why were you, and it was, I'm lying down going, oh, I forgot I'm in New York. There are boundaries within the love, within the form, within the, too wide open, and that's really tricky. Because what does too wide open mean? You talked about copyright. That's it. It's so challenging because I have to deal with the thing I like least in this entire organization, which are copyright issues, which I notice when fear arises, because I want everyone to read the course. I don't want to do rules and all that stuff, but there are reasons for it that are unfolding that I realize that I'm respectful of, that are becoming more and more clear why. And so it is being in the present and listening. Even those boundaries are love. Like if a child is doing something that's really not productive for the child or anyone around the child, you say, you know, here's the door to your room, go feel better, come out. And you teach them a service to connect again. So it does get a little tricky in that world of form, of the pureness of how we walk, and also some type of, like the course, what I love about the course is it says, you know, it doesn't need defense, but it does need protection. Truth does need protection. What does that actually mean in this world of form? And
yeah, that's a beautiful area, because I think guidance covers it all. Because when people have asked me about boundaries, I'll say, well, the more you tune in, you can have guidance. And certainly when it comes to like children, or Svava could even talk about our two-year-old cat. Wow. She's already raised 2 teenagers, and now she's got the journey of a lifetime with a 2-year-old cat called Unity, who is the spunkiest. She has a look on her face. She'll just say it all when she looks you in the eyes, like, honestly, you're not going to open the door for me, you know, just that kind of look, like you're not being supportive as a human here. Or sometimes she kind of flips and blinks, almost like, oh, humans. Like, but I think that the guidance is such a deep, discernment is so deep, it runs so deep, and that everything that we perceive is our opportunity to become more discerning of what would you have me say, where would you have me go, what would you have me do. And then the world, the psychologists, they call it boundaries, because that's their system. You know, they just are using the words that they relate to. I call it guidance. Yeah, follow your guidance without reservation.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And the other little point, and I know we're coming to the end of this time, is when we say, is it helpful to be around someone, and that there's no transmission? I object. I have hugged that lovely woman next to you. There is transmission. There is, and you know, like the transmission, I have hugged you. There is transmission of a clarity of love that has its own energy. And I do think that some of this matters the company we choose to keep, you know, of where we're pulled, especially when we're on the path of awakening or choosing to be more loving. And so the company, there is something to be gotten. And when people believe that a Guru Mai is giving the transmission, they're giving her the power to do that. And there is a benefit, but as long as it's brought back to, this is my inner self, this is the path with Jesus, this is, or as Helen called it, the voice, or love, whatever it is, the simplicity is, I want to find the person who is, as David, fun and loving. Let's play, you know. I mean, but you know, my work is here, and so my here is I get to play with Derek, who is fun and loving, and you know, it's just where we each bring that and who we project out onto. And I think that's, you know, part of this whole teachers series for me, is to let's play with the teachers. And you know, so if there's ever any time you want to come back, and we'll pick some people out there and say, come with us too, all of us, invited to return and play, or I'll come to you.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like a playful energy. There was, Svava went to India some, and she was named by a guru, what was it,
Saraswati Devi.
Saraswati Devi. Yeah. And I said, well, that's a beautiful name. And it, so there's things that are don't seem to be with our current situations that are all there in this moment. And then when I was over in Portugal, I had a free day, and Muji invited me to come over and spend some time. So we went up there and we were sitting in a little cafe, and then in comes Muji, and he just looks around and sees Svava, and he's like, just cuddles up to Svava. And I said, there it is. That's what you're talking about.
There it is.
It's just symbols, you know, it's all
Exactly.
just symbols, but
Exactly.
it's a vibration, it's a frequency.
Yeah.
And I feel it's all in our mind, and then the witnesses just are what we perceive in form. So that's why it always comes to be the kingdom of heaven is within, and purify your heart, and then enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride, ass backwards as it is. Enjoy the ride in any direction you feel like going. But it's true. You know, I also went to India, and I got, you know, renamed by a guru, and several women went together, and he was looking in his book, and he spent like 48 hours doing prayers, and we showed up, and he had made us each necklaces, and, you know, a whole ceremony. And the end was this naming ceremony, and he looked in the book for each one of us, and he said he was giving us a name that was our essence, but also our challenge. And so he went to one woman friend, actually sister, who was, you know, had a hard time with money, and had inherited some money from her grandfather, and had a hard time dealing with it. And she was given the name of Lakshmi, you know, goddess of wealth. And each person was given something that was their gift and their challenge. And he went around to everyone, and then he got to me, and he kind of looked at me, looked in his book, looked at me again, looked in his book, and then he gave me this name. I have to even look it up. I'm so bad with names, even my own. It was like Bhavana. And I said, who is that? And he said, the goddess of everything. And I said, oh, that sounds great. What's the challenge? And he said, too many options. And I laughed, because that is my challenge. Like, okay, I like so many options. I got to decide now. And so what's in a name is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
funny, because when I got that name, I had no idea what it meant. And then I asked afterwards, and it's a goddess of music, art, knowledge, and wisdom. And this was 15 years ago. And I remember thinking, why is he giving me this name? It made no sense to me. But yeah, it was like my function, you know, predicting my function.
Yeah.
The music and art.
It is amazing. So, okay, I know it's time for us to stop this, at least for the recording, and then we can just stay on forever after that. Thank you so much for joining the discussion conversation. I never know where it's going to go, but boy, do I enjoy it. Thank you.
We do too.
Thank you so much.
It's another fundraising.
Yes, it was another fundraising.
Okay, and Selena, I give it to you for closing.
Thank you all so much. We thank our discussion panelists, and also all of our attendees who are joining us today. I want to share a few foundation resources that may be helpful to you, so keep an eye on the group chat for website links, so we will be posting them there. A Course in Miracles web edition is now a year old. Since 2021, the ACIM web edition contains the complete course, including the full text from each workbook lesson along with accompanying audio. So you can read, share your favorite quote, and listen to A Course in Miracles from any of your devices. We're going to post it in the chat, but please go to acim.org/ACIM to see the web edition. We thank all those who've donated to our Foundation for Inner Peace. Your donation makes a difference, no matter the amount. Our listeners can visit our online donor page at acim.org/donate. As we wrap up the live feature today, a brief survey should display on your screen. So let us know how we're doing and what kind of content you would like to see. please stay tuned for July's web events. There's going to be 2 of them. A Day of Love and Gratitude will be on July 14th, and How to Listen to the Holy Spirit will round out the month on the 28th. We'll post this information on our website event page. You can always go there at acim.org. You can find it from the homepage or do /events, and make sure you register for next month's session. We'll also put those web links in the chat. With love and gratitude, thank you for being here, and we look forward to having you next time.